Hello and welcome to our brand new series, Genesis, the language of creation. I am Rabbi Rafi Mallet, everybody's Rebbe. I'm joined in the studio by Trey Bishop and Tim Flanagan. We have in the live stream already, we have Abigail Foster, we have Tim, we have B'nai Noach Hearts for Hashem, we have Liz, and we have Sandy. Let me give some words of introduction about this series. This series came about because we started a biblical Hebrew series on the book of Jonah. Hello, Monique. It was nice seeing you in person the other day. Hello, Colin. So we did a biblical Hebrew series on the book of Jonah, to which many of you may have attended. And subsequent to that, there were people who wanted to continue learning biblical Hebrew. However, I guess I overrided that, and I decided that we would instead study a text of Tanakh, but not with a focus on language and translation skills, but what is the meaning of the text overall, the overall meaning of the text. And there were people who were struggling because they really wanted to grapple more with the nitty-gritty of the Hebrew like we did in Jonah. Now, my friend Trey is one of those people who really wants to understand the Hebrew language on a more fundamental level. He was with us for Jonah, and we had one of our viewers in the Ovadia series noticed that Trey very sincerely wanted to delve more into the Hebrew language part of things. So this viewer very generously came forward and said, I would like to sponsor for you to learn privately with this individual, because I do private lessons. And when I spoke to Trey about it, he said, I would love much more if it could be a class, so that we could have other people join, benefit from the learning, and also contribute to the learning, because he said to me that he felt that he gained so much from everyone's contributions that he wouldn't want to lose that in a private session. So I went back to our benefactor and I said, would it be okay if we publicize the sessions? And our benefactor was happy with that as well, and hence the series was born. What was originally meant to be really a series of private lessons has been made public. Now, our benefactor is here in the live chat. I don't know if she wants to be identified, but if she does, she can give me a thumbs up or something, and I'll mention who it is. And otherwise, it's until now, this point, I don't want to necessarily out anybody if they want to remain anonymous, but I do want to acknowledge if this person wants to be acknowledged. I think it's very deserving. And the series is in honor of her mother. Lisa Sparks is here. Ciro Hernandez is here. So let me talk a little bit about the format. If you were with us for the Jonah series, you know that I put a lot of prep ahead of time, many hours of prep ahead of each lesson, preparing worksheets, preparing a glossary, preparing Quizlet assignments that you could use to study aside from the class. Now, because the original intent was for this class to be kind of a one-on-one. In a one-on-one, I don't prepare course materials. I really just talk to the person and conversationalize over the text and just speak one-on-one like anyone would do. And so in order to make this series, it's not practical for me to invest the hours of prep beforehand. So my vision is basically what this is. It's a public private lesson. But that said, that doesn't mean that you're spectators. The nature and the desire here is that everyone should participate, but I'm going to interact with you in a more casual, conversational, organic, informal style and approach than I did in the Jonah series. So yes, we're going to examine text, and yes, we're going to look at the grammar and the vocabulary, etc., and all that things. But I don't have worksheets. I don't have a glossary. I don't have all that. I'm going to allow for you to just take your own notes, review the recordings if you want, and take away from the series what you will. Contribute, ask questions. I'll respond to you just organically and in a natural manner. More to that note, I don't remember what else I was going to say, but that's basically going to be the approach in this series. It's going to be just more informal and organic of a progression through the text in a conversational manner. So please feel free to contribute your questions and comments in the live stream, your questions and comments in the live studio, however you find yourself here. So, we have 23rd Street is here and became a YouTube member. So thank you for joining as a member. Yes, I encourage everyone to join the channel as a member. I'm not charging anything for the series. Oh, this was the other point as far as membership. I do want to offer membership perks. So one of the perks of membership is that after the live stream, I make the class members only for 1 week, and then it becomes public. So if you're a member, you get that, so to speak, early access. If you're not able to join the live stream and you want to watch it immediately, or you want to review the class immediately, it'll be available for the first week to members only. And that's a members only perk to reward those people who do join as members. Membership helps the channel because it's a small monthly fee for you, but collectively it really helps as far as income to justify the time that I do put into making this possible. Of course, this series has a sponsorship, but for my channel in general and whatever I'm able to bring in from this is very encouraging for me to continue and produce more ultimately if I can. So please consider becoming a channel member. If you are moved to contribute to the channel in a more generous manner, there are donate links in the video description that you could feel free to use. Okay, so without further ado, if anyone who's in the studio would like to introduce yourself, like I said, I want this to be a little more informal and organic. So I'll let others talk. If anyone would like to say a few words, who's in the class now, you're welcome to do so. Trey, do you want to introduce yourself at all?
I guess that was a cue. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure everyone is very grateful to you for offering this publicly. And I want to say that somebody mentioned I have 2 more comments. Someone mentioned in the YouTube stream right now that in the chat that says 23rd Street says you must be on a computer. Phones do not work to join on. So if I'm not mistaken, Trey himself is joined through his phone. Maybe not the best connection, but it is working. Here's another note. I mean, if you're watching this, it might be irrelevant right now, but no, probably not. I sent an email and I put on the WhatsApp and the Facebook and my YouTube page the links. I made a mistake with the StreamYard link, which is the virtual studio. I put the link that I usually use for the Ovadia class. This is a different link. And so people who use that link will find themselves in an empty backstage studio area. So my apologies. I sent out a correction in the email. I put a correction in the WhatsApp. I edited the Facebook post and the YouTube post with the new link. So if you find it now, the link should work. If you tried it before and it didn't work, it's because I accidentally included the wrong link. So, 23rd Street said to join to become a member. Yes, correct. You may not be able to join using a mobile device. I think if you're using an Android, you can, but if you're using iOS, you cannot. So you'll have to use a desktop if you have an iOS mobile device, an Apple device. Okay. So, fine. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up the text. We'll just jump into it. Okay. And we'll just get started and see how it goes. So this is, like I said, there's a little bit of an experimental format. I don't usually give a class this way. I usually have a lot of prep beforehand, but I said, you know what? I'm just going to go in conversationally and we'll see how it goes. It might go great. It might be below people's expectations. We'll try our best and hopefully it'll be successful with Hashem's help. So let me now add the text to the screen, and please, I encourage everyone to be as participatory as you'd like to be. Okay, share screen, choosing my Safaria tab, and add it to the stage. Okay, so there is the text, ladies and gentlemen. And we begin with, well, I'll read it, and we can solicit from the class. Now, here's a little bit of a problem: is that these verses are so well known that if I ask you to translate it, you'd be like, well, I know already the English, so it's a little bit of a challenge of like putting aside what you know and actually translating it from the original Hebrew. So in Hebrew, I'm going to read it with what's called a modern Hebrew pronunciation, although tainted with a thick American accent. I'm going to try to set aside my traditional Ashkenazic pronunciation. If someone would like to know how it would be pronounced in an Ashkenazic tradition, in a Sephardic tradition, maybe even in a Yemenite tradition, I do have some knowledge about each of those, and I could do that, but I'm choosing what I think is the most common and universal translation used to, pronunciation used today, which is that of modern spoken Hebrew. Although we can all acknowledge that this isn't how the biblical Hebrews would have pronounced exactly, precisely. So this reads as follows: Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Okay, a little bit of thick American accent there. All right. So let's begin with the word Bereshit. Now, this may be something of a follow-up to the Jonah class. Maybe I'll ask if people can already begin. And the word Bereshit, is there anyone who can offer to sort of break down or identify some of the elements of this word and how to translate it?
Well, be would be either in or with.
Very good. Very good. So this first word, Bereshit, starts with the prefix be. The prefix be, the letter bet prefix, indicates in or with, usually. It can be somewhat elastic, but those are the main translations of it. In or with, okay? And then we have reshit. Does anyone see within the word reshit what might be the shoresh or the root of the word?
Would it be rosh, as in head?
Right, rosh as in head. So these three letters here, resh, aleph, shin, is identical essentially to the Hebrew word rosh, which means a head. So head could mean not just the person's physical head on your body part, but it could be a leader. It could be the first part of something, like a beginning, so to speak. So Bereshit, now we're going to talk about this little suffix over here, this it at the end, is a kind of a diminutive suffix. It indicates some modification or application of the concept of Rosh. And we'll see actually that there's something very peculiar over here. Oh, it's interesting. Here on the Safaria, you highlight a word and it'll give you these dictionary definitions, which is very interesting. First, beginning, best, chief, okay, choice part, very interesting. There's a whole bunch of Safari is very useful that way. It has a whole bunch of things, okay? So when we think of like the first verse of Genesis is in the beginning, so essentially that's the word Bereshit. In, and Reshit is beginning. Now there is something peculiar here. And Rashi, our favorite commentary of all time, does point it out. Now here in Safaria, I'm using the Hebrew version of it. You could use the English version of it. If you go here, you switch the language, right? So where it says commentary, in Hebrew, Mefarshim. So if you go to commentary, there's a commentary of Rashi. Before we dive into Rashi a little bit, any thoughts, comments, or questions until this point? Colin Martin says, I'm going to binge the Jonah series and then come back. Yeah, it's recommended. It's recommended. I'm going to try to explain everything, even if you haven't seen the series. I'm going to try to clarify everything. But the Jonah series will equip you a lot also. I'm not making it a required prerequisite, but it'll definitely help, as some people already contributing have been a part of that series. So the truth is, even before I go to Rashi, and please don't let me prattle on, interrupt at any time. We have in and Reshit could be head, beginning, right? That's what we saw. Head, top, summit. Oh, it's already different. Part, chief, total. It's weird. Okay. Let's see what we can make of the rest of the words here. Okay. Let's start with bara. And I'm afraid if I highlight it, it's already going to give you the answer on the side there. But this word here, bara, what can you do with that word? Anyone? So bara, this shoresh, bet resh aleph, is a shoresh that means, let's see what Safari reveals to us. It means to create. Okay. And here it says create, shape, form. I wouldn't go that far. Bara essentially means to create. Again, the shoresh, the root, has some elasticity to it. It may be in a different context able to modify its meaning, but essentially means to create. Do I hear someone speaking up?
It's Trey. Can I ask a
Yeah.
question real quick about this word?
Yeah.
I've been told that there are different. There's like create. There's form. There are different things that we may in
Mhm.
English have a common word for, but this one in particular indicates. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but
I know what you're trying to say. This indicates creation ex nihilo. Right? Is that what you were going to say?
I think so. Yeah. With
Now, creation ex nihilo,
from
for those who
nothing.
don't know Latin, assuming that's Latin, it means creation from nothing, out of nothing. Ex, out of nihilo, like to annihilate is to make something into nothing. Creation ex nihilo means creation out of nothing. That is essentially what the word bara connotes. And that's different than like the way it's used in English. When we create in English, when a person's creating, he's not really creating, he is manipulating matter that is already created. He's rearranging, he's perhaps shaping, forming. But creation in this sense is really ex nihilo, creation from nothing. And that is the
So can
verb
you?
that's used here in this verse. And it's used
How would
two
you
other times in the
contrast?
creation narrative. Yeah.
How would you contrast this with Yetzirah?
Oh, very good. Exactly. So yatzar, let's say the shorish yatzar, instead of bara, like we have over here, bet resh aleph. Let's see if we can even find it. It's in here somewhere. So the
Is that when Adam is formed?
yes. So I don't want to spend so much time scouring the text for right now, but if you could imagine a shoresh instead of bet resh aleph, like here, the first letter being a yud, that's this letter. The next letter being a tzadi, which is not such an abundant letter. It's all hard to find, but if you know what a tzadi is, and the third letter being a resh, okay? So resh is this letter here. It's like the R letter. A tzadi in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew and Ashkenazic pronunciation is like a TS, if you're hitting a crash cymbal, tss, okay? So yatzar yud tzadi resh is translated as to shape or to form, and that's taking preformed matter at present matter and shaping it or forming it or manipulating or changing it to make something else. So that would be the verb used by, let's say, a potter is actually called a yotzer. A yotzer, which means a shaper or a former, because he takes clay, he takes this matter, and he shapes it into a usable vessel. He is yotzer from that shoresh yatzar yud tzadi resh, forming or shaping. and we'll encounter that shoresh, but that is distinct from bara, which is not to manipulate already present matter, but to literally create something from nothing. Okay, any questions or comments before we continue? So let me talk about, and please interrupt me, let me talk about the conjugation here, okay? And a lot of this is going to be going to sound extremely overwhelming, like information overload in the beginning, but as we encounter it again and again through repetition, hopefully you'll get the hang of it. But right now it's going to sound very information overloady. What is the tense of this? What the first person, second person, third person? Is it singular? Is it plural? What can you tell me about this verb? So you'll notice that this verb is comprised purely of the shoresh letters with no prefixes, no suffixes, like basically no modifiers. So generally speaking, here's the general rule. When you have a verb that is comprised only of the 3 root letters, root shoresh means root, a verb comprised only of the 3 root letters, and it's vowelized with an ah sound under the first root letter and an ah sound under the second root letter, so it has an ah pattern. That means it's the third person singular, okay? I know that's very technical, but that means first person is I or we when I'm speaking, or we are speaking. That's the first person. Second person means like you, okay? And that could be you plural, could be you singular, could be you male, could be you female. All that is the second person. And the third person is what I'm talking about, sort of an objective outsider. It's not me and it's not you. It's him or her or them. Okay, that's third person. So when you have a verb like this, okay, now we're going slowly. In the beginning, we're going to go slowly. So don't be mad at me if we don't make a lot of progress, but I really want you to understand the language. You have a verb like this. It's made up of 3 root letters, and it's conjugated with no modifying prefixes, no modifying suffixes, and the vowel pattern is bara, okay? That means usually it's the third person. Third person is, again, he, she, or them. Singular, so it's not them. We got rid of one. Singular. Male. So we got rid of the she. It's he, okay? Third person singular male. Again, 3 root letters only. No modifying prefixes or suffixes. Pattern of vowels. And there's one more ingredient. Past tense. When it's the vowel pattern on the 3 root letters with no modifying prefixes or suffixes, it's past tense, third person, singular, male. In other words, he. Bara means he created. That's the form. 3 root letters, no prefixes, no suffixes, vowel pattern. Third person, singular, male. Bara, he created. So Bereshit, now again, I know that you all think this means in the beginning, because you know that everyone knows the first 3 words of the English translation, in the beginning. We're going to see eventually, whenever we see it, that's not so true. All we know is that we have in, and we have this word head, which could also mean beginning, and it was all going to depend on context, right? So in beginning, that's all we have so far. He created. Okay. Now we have the next word. Oh, before we go on the next word, any questions, any comments? Anyone need me to clarify anything till this point? Okay. Interrupt anytime. The next word here is Elohim. Okay. Now, this is one of the names of God. And to demonstrate how it's pronounced, that's why I'm reading it as it's spelled here. Normally, if I would be conversationally, as I am now, mentioning this name, I wouldn't read it as it's written. I would change the pronunciation so as not to enunciate the name of God. And a traditional Jew will read this if he's reading it sort of casually, or speaking it casually. He won't say Elohim. He'll say Elohim. He'll sort of change that H sound to a K sound just to obscure the pronunciation of the name because of its sanctity. We'll generally only pronounce it fully when we're reading the verse in its entirety or when it's used in prayer. But in speech, we'll generally obscure the pronunciation because we are fearful of a vain pronunciation, if you will. So I might do that. Just be prepared for that. So this word, which I told you, we'll say Elohim instead of the way it's written out. So I'm not teaching reading, by the way. If you don't know how to read Hebrew, that's not the purpose of the course. What I can teach you is pronunciation. So if you didn't know how to pronounce it, I'm telling you that this would be Elohim, or as I'm choosing to pronounce it for reasons I explained, Elohim. Okay, that is a name of God, one of the names of God, which generally speaking connotes, because God has many different names, and I've spoken a lot over different classes about the connotations of the different names of God. This is the name that generally connotes God's strict justice, so to speak, his attribute of strict justice, as opposed to the name that the more common name in the Torah and in the Tanakh in general, what you might consider the primary name of God that we're more familiar with, that's spelled Yud, the letter Yud, followed by Hey, followed by Vav, followed by Hey, which we don't pronounce as it's written. We pronounce it differently than that. We'll get there when we get there. That name is generally associated with God's attribute of mercy, and it's his primary attribute. However, the Torah begins with a narrative that tells us God, it describes God acting through his attribute of strict justice. Any thoughts on why that is? So the reason, yeah.
Could it be that at this point there's no requirement for mercy? Everything is going to be perfection.
Excellent. I think you're right on track. I think what you're saying is something very true and correct. And I appreciate what you said. I'll just repeat it, that God is creating everything perfectly. There's no mercy involved in the creation of, if you will, the laws of nature, right? The natural world is actually being created as a world of, I'm going to say it a slightly different way now. This is what I was planning to say. This is a world of boundaries. This is a place of boundaries, of rules, of, so to speak, nature. By its nature, almost by its definition, means something rigid and that follows a kind of a strict pattern. Okay, we have Yaakov is with us in the studio. Great to have you. So, and I'm gonna say something else. I'm gonna go a little bit deep now. Please forgive me. Is that ironically, when we're talking about creation ex nihilo, something from nothing, the irony is that that's really not what's happening over here. Is that before the creation of the world, there was only God's infinite, expansive existence, his completely unbounded self, which is the ultimate reality. It's the ultimate existence. It is, as Maimonides says, the only true existence is the existence of God, and everything that's created is only what he calls dependent existence versus independent existence. God has independent existence. His existence is intrinsic. But what God creates, its existence is dependent upon the creator. Its existence is not intrinsic. It's actually extrinsic. So what's happening actually in the creation of the world is that there's a diminishing of God's infinite, boundless essence into something which is finite. When you move from the infinite to the finite, it's actually a reduction, not an addition. So the creation, so to speak, ex nihilo, of something from nothing, sounds like you're creating something where there was nothing before. But in reality, it's a reduction of the ultimate something or the ultimate everything into something finite, reductive, reduced, diminutive, lesser. There's actually there's a diminishing that's happening in the creative process. So the name that's used is in a certain degree, a diminished name of God, not his infinite name, if you will. And it's a name that implies restriction, constriction, restrictiveness, because that's actually what's happening. A finite world of boundaries and limits is being created. So that's the use of this name over here. I hope that wasn't too deep for anyone. But like Abigail said, there's not yet a need for mercy. We haven't encountered something that is acting in a free way that mercy is required. Everything here is rigid right now. Or it's in a state of becoming more rigid, of being reduced from infinite to finite. Okay. Any questions? Colin says kind of like an electrical outlet. So I'm not sure what you mean. I wish you would elaborate what you mean by that. And here it says, Liz says, did you explain the olive prefix? I haven't explained the olive prefix because it hasn't come up yet. So there isn't really a need for it. In other words, in looking at the word of God's name, which begins with Aleph, that Aleph is not a prefix. Yes, it appears in the beginning of the word, but it's not a prefix. We'll talk a little bit more about it. So this name of God is based on this root, okay? This 3-letter root, Aleph Lamed Hey. Now, what's amazing about this 3-letter root, Aleph Lamed Hey, is not only is it the Hebrew word Eloah on its own, which means deity. Here he has even a shorter root of that. Just the Aleph Lamed alone means God, godlike, mighty one, and that's all correct. But you can even see here the Islamic name of God, Allah. Allah, the name of God in Islam, is this Hebrew word, essentially. Although Arabic and Hebrew are sister languages, it's from this word, which means God or deity. Okay, the Aleph Lamed Hey. Some people mistakenly think that Allah, the God in Islam, is from a different root, the Hebrew root Ayin Lamed Hey. Ayin and Aleph have similar pronunciations. And Ayin Lamed Hey is a root that means to rise up, and that Allah means like the high one, the one who is above, if you will. That's actually not correct. That is not the root of Allah in Islam. It's this word, Aleph Lamed Hey, which means divine being. Okay. Now, what you'll notice about that then is that it has a suffix, and the suffix, which is the im suffix, that little dot under the hey, which is the e vowel, and the yud mem at the end that spells im, is generally speaking a plural suffix, and that makes this name of God plural, and it essentially means, like, if you put it together, it's like gods, deities, or if you will, does he say it over here? He has it. Rulers, judges, angels are also called Elohim. I was looking for where he had before when I just highlighted these 3 letters. He had mighty one. Okay. Powerful beings. And the reason for that we've spoken about many times. Number one, Elohim essentially means, in that sense, means powers, and using God's name in this way is a way of describing God as the one in control of all the powers of the universe. That we look at the world and we see many different forces and powers and agents, and understanding that there's one God who is master over all of them. In addition, we've said this in many of my series prior to this, using a plural when speaking about a being of nobility or highness is a respectful manner of speaking, and we find that in many different languages. I've said this many times before, similar to, like, I don't know that many languages, but even in French, we have the familiar and the formal. When we speak formally, even to a single person, we speak in the plural. And when we speak in familiar, formal means, you're speaking with a degree of honor and respect. When you speak familiar to someone who's like, your close buddy that you can kind of speak more casually with, then you speak in the singular. But even to a single person, you speak in the plural, which is called the formal in French, because respectful speaking pluralizes as if to give a largesse, grandeur to the one you're speaking to, and also to put like a bit of distance between you and them, that like it's not one to one, we're not equals. I acknowledge that you are distant from me in some way by changing the number of you, the person I'm talking to, from the singular to the plural. And the commentators do say that for similar reasons, that we'll find that essentially all of God's names are written in the plural for that reason. And it has nothing to do with the Trinity. And I've debunked this before, but I'll just repeat it again. We have passages, again, like I said, human beings are referred to not only in the plural in biblical Hebrew when there's a respectful connotation, but human beings, as you see over here, rulers, judges, are referred to as Elohim, this word, even when they're singular human beings. Moses is called Elohim. God says to Moses, you will be an Elohim to Pharaoh. Does that mean that Moses is plural? Does that mean that Moses is a trinity of divine beings? No. As the commentaries point out, it means that you will be a master over Pharaoh. You will be given mastery over Pharaoh. But the word master in Hebrew is often written in the plural, even when it's referring to a singular, because that's sort of the formality of the language, is that a master is referred to in the plural. And that is a way of conferring respect, is to pluralize. So no less is done to the King, who is the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed is he, is that his names are expressed in the plural for that reason. So I wanted to put that aside immediately, because I think that becomes a point of confusion, and it becomes fodder for Christians and missionaries, and it's really nonsense. In other words, we have enough passages throughout the Torah that God is one and only one, and there is no other with him, aside from him, that, it's silly to try to extrapolate from a pluralized, it's not even a name, it's really a title, as you see, that this word refers to rulers, judges. It's more of a title than a name, to extrapolate from a title of God that's written in the plural, that somehow he's a being that has plurality in him. It's like going like this. All the direct references you ignore, but you try to find like a backdoor way to say something that is negated everywhere else in the text. In fact, it's negated in this verse, because the verb for God he created, as I told you, this verb is singular, masculine singular. So it's a singular verb. There's no plurality here. Okay, so it's very clear God is a singular being.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
What would it be if it were plural? If someone were to have wanted to write it instead of bara to make it plural, what would it be?
So if it was plural, very good question, it would be bare'u. Okay, I'll tell you what it would be. Bare'u. So you'd have the root. Okay, this letter here, the resh, would lose the vowel that it has right now, which is kamatz, which in modern Hebrew is an ah sound. In Ashkenazic Hebrew, it would be an ah sound, and it would be the same in Yemenite Hebrew as well. Yemenite Hebrew would have this as an so Ashkenazic Jews would pronounce this bara instead of bara. Yemenite Jews would also pronounce it bara, like Ashkenazic Jews do. Sephardic Jews pronounce it bara, and that's the adopted pronunciation in modern Hebrew. Now, I grant you that I'm not enunciating the resh the way a Sephardic Jew would, which would be like the tongue against the front of the mouth. Ra. It would be more like a rolling resh. Bara. Or like an Israeli would with a more guttural sounding R sound, which really derives from European languages. That's why modern Hebrew is neither Sephardic pronunciation nor Ashkenazic pronunciation. It's kind of a blend between the two. Like the consonant sounds really come from like the European languages, where the vowels they adopt more like the Sephardic vowels. So a Sephardic Jew would say bara, and an Israeli Jew would say bara, ra, rolling the resh in the back of the mouth. Okay, but that's just a note about pronunciation. This ah sound under the resh would go away. It would be replaced by this structure that's underneath the bet. I don't know if you could see my pointer, but I'm highlighting now. The bet has those two vertical dots underneath it. That's known as a shiva. A shiva, the sound of the shiva varies between like in the word be, reshit, and sometimes it'll be silent. We haven't encountered a silent one yet. But those two dots over there, those would end up underneath the resh, replacing the ah. And then you would get at the end of the word, after the aleph, you would get a vav that has a dot in the center, which is the vowel sound oo. It's known as shuruk in Hebrew, and that's the name of the vowel, and it has an oo sound. So you'd put a vav over here, and the word, I don't know if you can see my pointer. When I say here, I'm pointing to after the aleph. You put a vav after the aleph, and the word would become bareu. And bareu means they created. Now, again, here's another difference between, let's say, Sephardic pronunciation and modern Hebrew. The Sephardic pronunciation for and Yemenite, really any traditional pronunciation that is particular about the grammar, would pronounce it those little two dots that I stuck under the resh for the example, would enunciate it as and it would be like for a Sephardic Jew, it would be bareu. Okay. In modern Hebrew, they tend to ignore as much as possible the enunciation of those two dots, and they almost totally leave it out. So in modern Hebrew, it wouldn't be like bareu. They would say baru. They wouldn't enunciate it. It's not grammatically correct, but it's a colloquialism that's been kind of adopted and accepted. I'm going a little bit far afield, but that's the answer to your question. If this verb would be plural, it wouldn't be bara, it would be bareu. Okay, Bereshit bareu Elohim would mean they created, and it would refer to this entity over here. Another thing you're noticing is that the verb precedes the noun. That's not the way things are in like English, for example. You wouldn't say created God. In the beginning created God. You would say in the beginning God created. However, even in modern Hebrew, you would also do that. You would say, Elohim bara. You wouldn't say bara Elohim in modern Hebrew. It tends to follow like a more modern language syntax. But in biblical Hebrew, I wouldn't say it's a hard and fast rule that it has to be this way, but it's very frequently this way that the verb precedes the noun. So bara Elohim doesn't mean he created God. Okay. In the beginning, he created God. It means in the beginning, God created. That's just the syntax of biblical Hebrew. I could say a lot more. I don't know how much more overwhelming information you want right now, but I wouldn't say that's what I've said is simple, but I would say that it's not as complex as I could explain it. So I don't know if that's good enough for everybody right now. So Bereshit, we have in beginning. Now you want to know what to do with this yud taf at the end, right? So we'll talk about it. In beginning something we haven't defined yet. I'm keeping it simple. Bara, he created. Who created? Elohim, God. In the beginning, God created. No, I said the. It's not the. There's no the here yet. There's no the here yet. In beginning, God created. That's what we have. Okay. Any questions so far? Oh, I see Colin. Yaakov, are you raising your hand or you're just stretching?
Yeah, no, I have a question. I have a
Yeah.
question. Couldn't the first word signify a beginning?
Yes. Yes and no. In other words, perhaps and perhaps not. And would you like me to elaborate on your question?
Please.
Okay, so the reason that Yaakov is saying that is because, like I said, there's no the, okay? At least not one that we can see yet. This bit in like in beginning, it's generally in a, like, you know, in English you use the article a to introduce a singular noun. If I wanted to say the in the way I would say in those of you who were in the Jonah class know this already, is that I would vowelize the bet. I would vowelize it instead of with the shiva that it has right now. I'd actually vowelize it like this bet is vowelized over here. To clarify, what I'm highlighting now is not a prefix. It's a root letter. But this bet prefix, if it would be vowelized the same way this bet is here, happens to be, and it would be ba reshit, for example. Ba, once it goes from be to ba indicates the definite article, in the. So if it was really in the beginning, it should be ba reshit. Okay? When I have it just be reshit, it indicates, ooh, very special people are here right now. It indicates in a beginning and not in the beginning. So that's already get the wheels turning in your brain. In a beginning, like a beginning is not the beginning, but a beginning. Like maybe there's several and we're only talking about one of them. How many beginnings are there? I'm gonna let you think about that. And yet I said to Yaakov, yes and no, because some will explain, as we may eventually get to, I don't know if in this class, why there is a the here. There is a the here. I just haven't shown it to you yet, perhaps. However, when I do show you the, it's going to create a new problem. And this is one of the most problematic verses in the Torah as far as the grammar, that almost any way you slice it, this verse is grammatically troubling. And the commentaries all grapple with the grammatical conundrums that exist in this verse. Okay. And if we ever get to Rashi, I'll show you how he expresses that. So it either means in a beginning, which is like, what? In a beginning? How many beginnings were there? You know, like one of the beginnings, you know, like what? Question. And if it means in the beginning, we're going to see a different problem that I haven't yet introduced to you. So therefore, the answer to Yaakov's question of does it mean in a beginning is perhaps. Okay. Any other questions so far? We did first 3 words. Oh, I see. Colin has a comment. Like, you can't plug your phone directly into the power plant to charge it. It has to be converted and reduced. Okay, I hear what you're saying. In other words, for God to create the world, he has to, in a certain way, convert or what do they call those things? Adapt the overwhelming infinite power that he has to reduce it to your appliance so it doesn't burn out the appliance. I think that's a very apt analogy to the creation, and the Kabbalists do kind of speak in those terms that that God conceals himself in order to allow the world to be in its present state, and that's why there is evil in the world, because evil is limitation of God's goodness. It's the concealment, it's the darkness. God's light, which is revealed, is good, and where it's not revealed because it has to be concealed, it's that's where there's a lack of God's light, or what we might call evil. That gets very philosophical, but essentially, this is a very good analogy. Golden Gun says, I enjoyed Talmud Yerushalmi, a Roman saying Elohim is plural and the answer being bara is singular. Good answer. Yes, I know exactly what you're referring to. In fact, you're referring to also verse 26, where it says, let us make man, and who's the us? And when we get there, we'll discuss it. Okay. But that's a very old challenge, and it has a very old answer, you know. So, okay. Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, I said the again. So far, we haven't met the. In beginning, God created. Okay. We have a couple minutes. Should we try to go a little further, or should I take any more questions? So Trey, oh, you got booted off the stage. I put you back in. I see that. You said I tried to open YouTube chat and got booted from the StreamYard. Yeah, maybe because you're on your mobile device, it can't like multitask. But I put you back in case that's helpful. Okay. Now let's go here. So in beginning, God created, okay, 8 Hashamayim, or et Hashamayim, depending how you want to pronounce this vowel. Ashkenazim pronounce the vowel under the aleph as a. Sephardim pronounce it as eh. Yemenites pronounce it as eh. However, Yemenites pronounce this, which Ashkenazim and Sephardim both agree is eh, they pronounce as ah. So, you know, like I said, I'm going to try to stick to modern Hebrew. And modern Hebrew follows mostly the Sephardic pronunciation. So this would be et Hashamayim. So et, we'll come back to it. Let's start with Hashamayim. So anyone who has some prior Hebrew background, translate Hashamayim or break it down for us. How would you translate that?
The hay is the, and
yeah.
Shemayim, heavens.
Okay, good. So Shemayim, heavens. That's a great translation. It's an interesting word. It also means we're gonna see that Shemayim is also the word for sky, and you'll notice also that it's plural, similar to how this word is plural. We have Shamayim is plural, and there are different explanations for why heavens is plural. Maybe because certainly according to Kabbalistic teaching, there are many layers to the heavens, if you will, the spiritual realms. And even when we talk about the physical heavens, like the sky and outer space and the solar system and the galaxy and beyond the galaxy, etc., there are so many different sort of levels or layers or gradations of depth to the heavens, to the physical heavens, as it were, that it really is quite appropriate to refer to it in the plural. It's a little even less mysterious the more you understand cosmology and astronomy than maybe to the ancient world it was. So the heavens, which could also mean sky, and sky again could mean the atmosphere, but it could also mean what's visible in the sky, including outer space, and even what's beyond what's visible in outer space. So it's a very elastic term here also. Okay, so God created in the beginning the heavens. Now, what about this word 8? This word 8, what is or et? What is et doing over here? Okay, now here, I notice Safari is doing my job for me. It says, sign of the definite direct object, not translated in English, but generally preceding and indicating the accusative. Now, that's way too complicated for me, but I'll try to explain what that is. Is that, you remember over here, we had bara Elohim, and I said that means God created, even though we have the verb first, and it sounds like he created God, right? So how do I know that this is God created and not he created God? So the reason is because of this word here. The way that biblical Hebrew, even modern Hebrew, will differentiate between the subject in the sentence and an object in the sentence is by putting the word et before the object, like it says here, sign of the definite direct object. Now, just to go over these terms in English of what's a subject and what's an object, which you may or may not remember from elementary school English, is that in a sentence, the subject is the one who is acting, and the object is the one being acted upon. So, for example, in the sentence, you know, the rabbi threw the football. Okay, the rabbi is doing the throwing. He is the subject of the sentence. The ball is being thrown. It is the object of the sentence. Okay, so in English, the order of the words clues you in. The rabbi threw the ball, right? Subject, verb, object. But you see in Hebrew, it's not like that. You can have the verb first, bara Elokim. But since there's no word et before the word Elokim, that indicates to me that Elokim is the subject who is doing the action bara. But when I have the word et in front of the word hashamayim, the heavens, that tells me this word hashamayim is the object. This is the thing being acted upon. This is the thing being created. Okay? So, bara Elokim, God created. What did he create? Et, here comes the object. You ready for what he created? Hashamayim, the heavens. Ve'et, now what's ve'et? I have the prefix vav there. What is that vav doing, students?
Means and.
And vav is the prefix for and. Very good.
And then
And
the
so,
et is.
and so it's introducing another object, and the next object is haaretz. Now, once again, ha is the prefix meaning the, just like we had over here, ha shamayim, the heavens, the sky, and the aretz. And who knows what's aretz?
Earth.
What?
It's the earth.
The earth. Okay, land, earth. You see over here, land, earth. So here it has eretz. Here it's aretz. You'll ask me why is here the vowels are eretz and here the vowels is aretz. Is a different story. Not for now. We've talked about it before, but essentially, there's this concept that at the end of a verse or at the end of a phrase, which, by the way, if you look at the word Elokim, you'll notice aside from the vowels, if you recognize letters and vowels, these little symbols, like under the shin, there's a little macaroni noodle, and under the resh, there's like a bracket, and under the hay, there's a wishbone. Okay, macaroni noodle, macaroni noodle, macaroni noodle, and here there's like a vertical line, and here there's these two dots. So these are the cantillation marks. They indicate two things. Number one, how to sing the verses with the tune. Bereshis bara Elohim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. Okay, that would be the Ashkenazic tune. There's some variants in the tune. We won't go into all the variants. Not only does it tell you how to sing the tune, it actually indicates the punctuation. There's no punctuation in a Torah scroll. In fact, there's no vowelization in a Torah scroll. If you open a Torah scroll, you'll see it's just letters, no punctuation whatsoever, not even periods, commas, nothing. No vowel sound, no vowel signs. All the vowels are memorized. In texts like this for study, they will be printed in. They'll be added in the vowel points, but they're not in the scroll. And the cantillation is also essentially oral tradition. It's memorized. It's put in the text for study, but it's not in the scroll itself. This symbol here indicates, like it's called in Hebrew etnachta, which is actually an Aramaic word, which means rest. It's kind of like a semicolon or a comma. It indicates a strong end of a phrase, okay? And the two dots indicate the end of the verse. It's not a colon like in English. It's like a period, okay? Why did I bring that up? Because often at the end of a phrase like this or here, there's a shift in the vowels that that sort of indicates some punctuation. It's like the vowels indicate a bit of punctuation. This switch from eretz to aretz kind of indicates it's the end of the sentence. Okay, that's a little bit. And this does not exist in modern Hebrew. It's purely a biblical Hebrew element. Okay, a characteristic. So altogether we have in beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay. Now, what we need to do, and we'll explore it next time because we're out of time, is what are we going to do with in beginning? How do we get from in beginning to in the beginning? Is it just an implied definite article and just sort of imagine it there? Or is there more to it? Hint, hint, there's a lot more to it. But that'll have to wait for the next lesson. But I hope I've clarified this verse. I want to respond to some of the YouTube comments and any comments that people might have in the studio. First, we'll give the studio people a chance because they're here in the studio. Studio folks, any questions or comments at the end of the hour?
I have one on voracious, but I'll save it until next week when you discuss the rest of that word.
Okay, don't forget your question. Write it down. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? I'm gonna look in the YouTube chat comments in a few seconds. Okay, so yeah, Trey, is that you? Who's
Rabbi,
speaking? No, that's you, Yaakov. Go ahead.
It's me, yeah. The reason that I asked about using the word a beginning is that there has always been this problem in understanding it in a historical or prehistorical context. And a beginning, as you suggested, might mean that there was more than one beginning, and the others, the earlier ones, failed.
Excellent. So,
And I think in some ways that can help us understand why we have issues in figuring out how prehistoric creatures actually appeared, but yet they're not present in here.
okay, very good. So I'll respond to your remark if I may. Okay. The first thing I want to say is let me just elaborate on that. There is, yes, the question of age of the universe and how do we square it with let's say a hyper literal reading of Genesis of 6 days of creation, and then we kind of count all the years to the present is somewhere within 6,000 years, and modern science would seem to have a plethora of evidence that the universe, the creation, is indeed much older. And how do we reconcile that? And there are many different ways. And if you're familiar with like Christian creationists, they have very creative ways of reconciling it. The Jewish writers have had similar or different creative ways of reconciling it. One approach has been to say that the creation account that we get in the beginning of Genesis is already kind of late in the history of the universe, and that all the history that came before has somehow become irrelevant, and God pressed the reset button and started over. And there's some clues to that in the text, one of it being what Yaakov brought up. Another clue is we'll see that it says the earth was shapeless and void, and God, it says that God and the water, it says the waters covered the earth. Where did those water come from? Right? I didn't hear anything about water. And then it says that God had the waters move to one side, and it says, and the dry land became seen. Right? Like, oh, there was dry land under that water. Where did that come from? So obviously there's difficulties with this because we just read in the beginning he created the heavens and the earth. So if this is in a beginning, and this a beginning is a later beginning, so if there was no heavens and earth until now, what are we even talking about? So there are difficulties in reading it that way. However, it has been suggested, and maybe we could reconcile it. We won't do it now. There is a statement in the Talmud, tractate Chagiga, that there were 974 generations prior to the creation of Adam. Now, if Adam was the first man, how do you have 974 generations before him? So that's a mysterious statement. And again, some suggest it's related to prior iterations of creation before our own. And if you want to read more about this, I will suggest you read an essay by, write this name down, Aryeh Kaplan. Aryeh Kaplan, it's spelled Aryeh. Last name Kaplan, Kaplan. He has an essay on the age of the universe. I don't remember the title of it, but pretty much like the age of the universe is somewhere in the title. So if you like Google, Aryeh Kaplan, age of the universe, you may find this essay, or somewhere where you can purchase a collection of his essays that is among them. I would recommend reading anything by Aryeh Kaplan. He is absolutely brilliant. Everything he writes is phenomenal and uplifting and educational, and really helpful. And most of his writing is short, small books, very accessible. I recommend especially a series called the Aryeh Kaplan Anthology, 2 volumes, which contains within it like a dozen small books that he wrote, and it's collected into 2-volume set called the Aryeh Kaplan Anthology, Part 1, Part 2. This essay, however, is in a separate volume, which is like Aryeh Kaplan essays. I don't remember exactly the title of the volume. I used to have it. Those essays are far less interesting. It's sort of like his own. It's almost like a diary of writing about his own personal interests. It's not really like an analysis of a subject, but he'll write about his collection of incunabula. If you people know what incunabula are. If you don't know what incunabula are, I'm not going to tell you. You could look it up. But he talks about his collection of incunabula. And one of the essays there is the age of the universe. That's probably the most. He talks about extraterrestrial life according to the Torah. Could there be extraterrestrials? Check it out. Age of the universe. How to reconcile the scientific, so-called, put in quotation marks, scientific age of the universe with, put in quotation marks, the biblical age of the universe. So he does suggest a model to understand this problem based on the suggestion of multiple creations, and using that statement in the Talmud that I mentioned before as a source, a traditional source for such an approach. So you could check that out. Okay. Any other comments in the studio? I'm looking at the stream, the YouTube comments now. Okay. So Golden Gun said Mayim part. Now, maybe you're referring to the word Shamayim, which we said means heavens. And you're noticing that in the word Shamayim is the word Mayim. And you'd like to know what to make of that. So let's hold that thought for now. Okay. There's some interesting answers to that question. So T Bishop said, I'd also like to know its relationship to water. Okay, maybe we'll save that if you ask next time. Why the shin, right? If it's mayim, water, why is there a shin in front of it? Shamayim. Okay, that's all part of one question, which maybe because of the late hour, we'll revisit next time. Okay, Golden Gun says 8. That word, like et hashamayim, et haaretz. It's the first and last letter. Aleph is the first letter, and Taf is the last letter. So can say everything. It's sort of like encompassing of everything. Okay, that's a comment that is a little beyond the scope of this course, but I would like to address it, but maybe bring it up again next session. The idea of 8 being Aleph to Taf and being inclusive of everything, and we'll talk about that at that then. Colin Martin says, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Rabbi. You're welcome. Thank you for everyone who joined tonight. Come again next week. And thanks to our anonymous sponsor, says Trey. Lisa Spark, fantastic teaching. Thank you, Ramal and sponsor. Thank you, Ramal. It was good seeing you the other night. Likewise. Thank you to the sponsor of the series. And thank you, Rabbi, for your great teaching. Have a blessed week. Thank you, Rabbi Mala and sponsor and Trey. Thank you so much. This was a wonderful class tonight. Liz says, thank you. I think it's so important to start at the beginning. People tend to jump ahead. Invite people to join us. Yeah, so here we are at the beginning of the Torah, learning the language. I did Jonah, which is not the beginning. It's way, way out in the later prophets. But the reason I chose that text then is because it's such a short book, 4 chapters, and it tells a sort of cohesive story with mostly basic biblical Hebrew. It seemed like a very easy text to study, but I think there's maybe a lot more interest in the 5 books of Moses, studying the 5 books of Moses. So this kind of blends the two together. It's the Torah and it's Hebrew, the language. So I'm very happy with the attendance tonight. I hope that people continue to come and more people come. Cyril says, excellent class, Rabbi. Thank you. Welcome. So some leftover questions that we'll try to address next week. Just please remind me, is shamayim, what is the relationship to mayim, water? And the word et being comprised of the letters Aleph and Taf, which are the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, like bookends. What relevance does it have specifically in this verse? Paul Winder gifted 1 Rabbi Rafi Mallet membership. So if you're in the live chat right now, you might find yourself suddenly a member of the channel, because I think YouTube randomly will toss these gifted memberships at some attendee. So if you're the lucky one, good for you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And if you'd like to reach out, I'm terrible at answering emails. I'm just so sorry. Really, the best way to get me is WhatsApp. If you want to contact me on WhatsApp, email me and we can connect on WhatsApp. We can trade information. So Rabbi Rafi Mallet at gmail.com. No, that's my old email. It still works, but I prefer rabbi at rabbirafimallet.com. Even though my website at rabbirafimallet.com is currently not operational, but the email still works. Rabbi at rabbirafimallet.com. Email me. I'm very bad at answering emails. It's just really hard for me to find the time to compose email replies. It's a weakness I have. I email Rabbi Breitowitz. I don't know if you know Rabbi Breitowitz, but if you know him, I email him. It doesn't matter like when I email him, what I email him. Within a very short time, he responds to me. And I'm like, how does this man do it? He's like one of the biggest Torah scholars on earth. He's a very busy teacher. He has a huge number of students around, in person, around the world. How is he responding to his emails so promptly and thoroughly? Like, it boggles my mind. I have no idea. I mean, maybe if this was my full-time gig, I would be better at it. But I'm a teacher. I'm in a classroom, 8 hours a day. And then I come home and I have a family. I don't have time, and it's so hard. Honestly, I'm just being a little bit real with you. It's so hard for me to carve out of my week an hour here, an hour there to sit in front of my computer without a disturbance and offer a class. But it's something I love to do. And it's my pleasure to do it, but it's a big challenge for me. So I apologize to all the people who email me and don't hear back from me. It's just a personal weakness. But WhatsApp is way easier because I can do like voice notes, like even when I'm walking, exercising, lying in bed, like I could just, respond to a WhatsApp so easily that I much prefer it. But I don't want to give out my WhatsApp number because it's my cell phone number. But if you contact me personally, so then I can share my contact information for that purpose. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Thank you for coming, and I hope to see you all again.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, sponsor.
Yeah, thank you for another amazing class. Your own little personal Rashi, so we appreciate you very much.
I really, it's my pleasure to help people to learn, to study, to grow. So the fact that I could be here for an hour and talk with you and hear from you and answer you is very fulfilling for me. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. I want to be as helpful as I can. And everyone have a great rest of your week. We'll see you, God willing, Sunday for the Avadi class. Oh, this past Sunday, I didn't give the class. I made a mistake. I sent an email to the class that I wouldn't make it, which was correct. I forgot to put it in the WhatsApp. So please forgive me that you didn't. Some people were looking for me and looking for the class, and they didn't get information. I forgot to inform on WhatsApp. I have a WhatsApp group, by the way. For those who don't know, I have a WhatsApp group where I post like media relevant to my teachings. You can join that. Reach out to me. I forgot to post there that I wasn't doing the class. I forgot to post on Facebook. I forgot to post on YouTube on my community page. So only the people who got the email knew there wasn't a class. Other people came looking for a class, didn't find one. My apologies for that. The reason I wasn't there was because Shannon Newson, I don't know if some of you may know who she is. Like Monique was there. She was hosting an event here in Houston Sunday night, and she asked me to share a few words. So because I had to be in person somewhere else, that was a kind of like unique event, a one-time event of her book launch. Shannon Newson, former Christian missionary, she wrote a book about her exodus from Christianity and the work she does now countering missionaries. So you could look out for that. It's called Monique, you remember the name of the book? Like I'm blanking on the name of the book, but her name is Shannon Newson. Last name is spelled like Neuszen. So I was at that event, so I couldn't do the class and be at the event. But God willing, this coming Sunday, I hope we'll be able to proceed with our Ovadia series. For those who join that, thank you for joining that. And if you're joining the Hebrew series, this one that we're doing Tuesday nights, God willing, see you next week. And again, thank you all for all your support. Yaakov, were you about to say something?
No, I will contact you directly.
Okay, great.
Because otherwise it might interfere with where you're headed.
Okay.
In this class.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna get going because it's late. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye. Have a good week.
You too.
Thanks, Trey.
Good night, everyone.